Here's everything you need to know about armoring your G-Wagon with Jack.
With Jackwagon Overlanding.
Jackwagon himself. We're talking front bumpers, rear bumpers, skid plates, rock rails, and even beadlock wheels. Let's rock and roll.
Let's do it.
We've got both our rigs, the Jackwagon behind me and my rig, as well as another one that you can kind of see, but that's for later. That's one of the first little teaser. We'll stick around for the next video because we're going to do a build tour on a 2019, the first new chassis build that I'm aware of. I know Joe did one, you did some things to this. Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Okay. In this video, I want to explain why I'm down here. So I'm actually down in Fort Worth with Jack. I drove 12 hours yesterday to get here, which was awesome. In one drive. In my truck, because it is time to go from this AFN bumper to a Jackwagon bumper. And I have a lucky YouTube viewer named Max, who's going to be a proud new owner of this bumper, because I'm going to be jumping into a Jackwagon bumper right here. So we are going to do a quick build tour right now of these both of these rigs. You can see AFN front and rear bumper versus Jackwagon front and rear bumper, as well as, because we get a lot of questions on this, the Hutchinson beadlocks versus 463 Industries beadlocks and more. So yeah. Jack, let's rock and roll.
Let's have some fun. You want to start with your truck or my truck?
Yeah, let's jump into the AFN. Walk me through. You know, by the way, I learned most of what I know about G-Wagons from two people, Jack and then Joe on the channel.
Absolutely.
So I'm just an enthusiast who loves these things. These guys are the real professionals. And Jack's going to pick apart stuff that Joe might have an opinion on, because that's the beauty of having a hobby like this, is opinions.
Absolutely.
And we all get to have them. So anyway, jump into your kind of rundown on these bumpers.
So I will say we do proudly sell the AFN bumper front and rear, and they've done really good for a lot of our clients. There's a couple shortcomings that Adam G-Wheeling has found out. I need to ask, hopefully maybe you cut that one little part. Do you like G-Wheeling or do you like Adam?
Oh, you can
what
do
we
whatever.
Like? I mean, do we call you Adam or just call you G-Wheeling?
You can call me whatever you want. I usually go by my name.
Do you go by Adam?
But I like, but G-Wheeling sounds fun.
G-Wheeling.
My other YouTube channel was branded as the Roof Strategist.
Okay.
And then I'd be rocking, hey, you're the Roof Strategist. So either one, man. Either one.
So AFN, it's got a nice little setup where you're going to have the winch hidden. People really like that a lot. Front head-on shot. You're not going to be able to see the winch. It all fits in one little pocket. You've got some nice little fog lights integrated in there. You also have a welded-on bull bar, which is a really nice configuration, and I will give them props that their bull bar design is super sexy. It's a nice hefty pipe size. They've got all the bracketry in the middle, so it's nice and form-fitting to the truck. It looks proper.
Yeah.
The one thing that our G guy over here, Mr. G-Wheeling, has found out is that if you look at the underside, you've got some rough edges. And so the other thing, you'll notice two things. Number one, you'll see there's not any sign of a weld here, but there is a visible weld here, and that's because of the way they develop them. These are actually, to my understanding, they're pressed and actually bent into place, and then certain pieces are welded together. On our design, which we'll talk about in a second, it is fully welded in individual pieces of steel. For better or worse, when you're bending things, you do actually lose a little bit of that structural integrity. A little bend's not a big deal, but it actually fatigues the material as opposed to strengthening it, which a weld will do. Mm-hmm. The next thing you'll notice is when we come down to the lip, you get a good angle there, you can see that it actually bows down, and you've created this line to where if you're going to hit something, you're hitting it on a seam as opposed to a flat surface like you would here. And so
which, knock on wood, I have not yet done. I don't know how, but I have not done that.
And so you also kind of see something similar like that with the skid plate. Maybe not super obtrusive, but it is just one of those small little details. By and large, with a lot of guys that use them, they do work really well though. But another thing that doesn't help a lot with some of the newer models that'll have the Parktronic or Distronic, they're not going to have that functionality. We have seen where guys will come in after the fact and the install shop or the person putting the bumper on the truck can drill out holes and find a way to make the Parktronic sensors fit, but it's not something that comes.
I have mine turned off. Yeah. On that Parktronic, I kind of want to jump ahead because big question that people have is, will my park assist work and blind spot monitoring? So I've got my blind spot monitoring turned off.
Yes.
Can we jump to your back bumper and
Let's
just
do
talk
it.
through that? Because it's kind of relevant.
So real quick, we will say on the Parktronic, you can make it work, but that's install time and some modification required. One thing we pride ourselves on is that ours are essentially as plug and play as you can get in terms of putting them onto the truck. All of our stuff is custom essentially made to each individual client, and it's handmade. The bumpers are handmade here in Texas, and a lot of them are with my own hands. We do have another buddy that does some welding for me, but this is all handcrafted specifically to our clients. So if you need Parktronic, we put the Parktronic on it. If you don't need it, we can leave it where there's no holes whatsoever. With this is a large batch manufacturing process, which helps a little bit with the cost. But in turn, you can sometimes pay for that in terms of functionality or capability, and also some of the install time. It's going to take a little bit longer to wire this thing up. It might take a little longer if you need to put Parktronic or find a way to make Distronic work, which is even more of a challenge. But sliding back to your question, on the rear
and you
bumpers.
can see, hold on, before we do that, I know I just told you we go to the back, but this is the jackwagon front bumper. Disclaimer, you'll see some holes drilled into this one. I'm just adjusting the camera here, but that's because this is you're the test dummy for
It's
your
the
own
guinea pig.
innovations
And
and
so another thing that we pride ourselves on is I'm Jack, and it's a G-Wagon. Jackwagon Overlanding was made for G-Wagon guys by G-Wagon guys. Myself, and so we put the stuff on our truck, and we use this stuff, and we test it, and we make sure it works. This isn't a large company that's saying, oh yeah, hypothetically this should work, and you kind of let the clients figure it out. More often than not, it's something that we have tested out ourselves. We have firsthand account of how it all works, and so you get a really nice finished product with that. We, on the other hand, when we're testing out things, we'll end up with nice little holes when we're test fitting a bull bar and different things like that.
But talk me through Parktronic sensors. And yours are working.
Parktronic is fully functional.
And I don't have that on mine.
And so with the Parktronic, we've got some nice holes cut out in there. We've got them, exactly cut out so that you can fit the factory sensors and plugs right into place. All the wiring is literally, it's just a harness, a big, probably 5 or 6 long, 6-foot cable. Runs across the side, you just plug them in each of the holes and you're good to go. There is one other sensor on this bumper that we don't use, and that's the Distronic. Your truck and mine do have Distronic. Neither one of us are using them, but it actually doesn't matter if we used a factory bumper or either one of these bumpers. We made something else that had it, which, on a side note, our JW detachable winch bumper, which is the original front bumper we designed for these, it actually does have full functionality of the Distronic and the Parktronic.
And Distronic is the adaptive cruise.
Distronic is going to be your adaptive cruise, and so the disclaimer on that is we're running 4-inch and 35s. You're running 4-inch and 35s. And anytime someone goes over a 33-inch tire, it doesn't even matter about the lift we found out. It's strictly the tires. Anytime you go over a 33-inch tire, the Distronic becomes inoperable. So your adaptive cruise control won't work, and in turn, none of your cruise control works. And why is that? Just a fun little nerdy thing. It's because the way the tires, the way the truck regulates the distance to and from you has to go with your speedometer. It's tied into how fast you're going. The bigger the tire you go, the farther from reality your real speed versus what it thinks it's going, it gets a bigger gap on how much it changes. I'm butchering that up, but
no,
it
that's
changes.
all right.
The bigger the tire, the more it gets messed up.
That's why I run Waze.
At 30,
is my new speedometer.
and we recommend that quite a bit. And so actually, the fun fact about Waze, you get the little candies if you report a traffic incident or a cop on the road. So that's always a fun thing for the road trips. But anytime you go over 33s, the speedometer gets so far off from reality, the computers and the Distronic, the way it's working, it's thinking that it's going how fast it's going. But the car in front, since you're actually going faster than the computer recognizes, it constantly thinks that the cars in front of you are hitting the brakes, and it wigs it out. And so you've gotten too far off, they won't work. It's gone.
So a couple things, and we will get to the blind spot monitoring. I know I said we go to the back, but I want to actually wrap up on the front. So a couple things, Jack, that I know when I first pulled up at your shop, I got really excited about is on the AFN bumper, this the approach angle itself may not change, but your ability to get up and on a rock will. So this bumper is pretty thick, and then we got this lip that hangs down. And then if we look, oh, look at that. Looks like I took a chunk. I mean, I know it was already trimmed, but you can see about how much fender is left here.
Sure.
If we just turn our attention right over to yours, look at how thin. I mean, I got to get down to even see, like, this is totally flat here. And there's way more space to get up and over, to get your tire up on a rock. Sure. And I know that I have impacted things on mine, which is actually just right here. This was from Moab. I ended up, the entire bumper shifted. So the mounts on these AFNs are just, I think that these bumpers are designed, they're gorgeous looking. We'll do a rear side-by-side comparison, but they're really made for people. I think they're made for someone who's going to be more of a casual off-roader, sure, cosmetic, than someone who's going to go bashing on rocks.
Light off-road use is a little bit better for it. And of course, if you need to winch, the winch functionality still works just fine.
Yeah, I found that out.
If you're going to go bash on stuff, you know, things get a little different.
So that's why I actually called you. Yep. I was like, dude, what's up with this AFN? Like, it's shifting. And you're like, hey, what would it take to get you into a jackwagon bumper? And then I was like, well, I'm coming to Dallas for work. And I just got down here, well, yesterday, and I'm running an event starting tonight for the next 2.5 days.
Busy, man.
So I'm here to do this. And anyway, so walk us through this front bumper, and then we'll jump into the rear.
Yeah. So on our bumper, we talked a little bit about some of the way that one is bent into place, and there's some welding going on. This bumper, as well as all the jackwagon bumpers, are 100% cut and weld bumpers. This is 1/4-inch thick plate, and it's all 1/4-inch thick steel. And then every one of these seams is actually grinded down and cleaned to look like one piece, but this is a piece and another and another and another, and it's all fully welded together. And so when you're talking about the strength of your joints, having a welded joint is actually going to improve that strength as opposed to make it worse. So we're really happy with that. Got a little dangle going on that. But
you can't judge the test vehicle.
This is the guinea pig, and we take pride in being called the jackwagon. You will see a little rust on it, and sometimes we don't even paint things or powder coat them because we want to see, you know, how bad can they get.
Right.
But anyways, again, we do have the functionality of the Parktronic. We've got fully integrated Baja Designs S2 Pros on this version. On Adam G. Whelan's bumper, we're actually going to use are we doing a single squadron on yours?
Whatever this is.
So yeah, you're going to have...
These lights are getting put on.
Yeah, so you're going to have these LP6s are going to go up on the top of the bumper, and then integrated for your fog lights will actually be a single Baja Design Squadron Pro here, and also on that side. So you're going to have even more light for your cornering and fog light needs over ours. Guys that don't have Parktronic, we were actually able to squeeze another light. Shout out to Koiby G. Kirby out in California is running one of our integrated winch bumpers, and he actually is using a dual squadron configuration. And so with not having this parking sensor in the way, we could actually throw another light so we can be extremely bright and blinding down the road.
And these trucks need it. By the way, if you think of it, these headlights, they point, if I'm lucky, 15 feet to the ground, like I think, like to right here.
Yeah.
So I run with my high beams on constantly.
Right, right.
I have no idea if you can adjust that. I think, I don't remember if they're
You
adjustable.
really can't do much adjusting, and so that's going to be one thing that comes anytime you're lifting the truck. That light is going to dissipate before it gets to the road, so a light's going to shine out. Yeah. And as you're lifting higher and higher, you're losing more light as you're getting down to the ground.
Yeah.
And so definitely having some some type of auxiliary or secondary lighting on the bumper, on the rack, as you'll see on our truck, and things like that is going to give you more ability driving at night, driving country roads, driving down your neighbor's street so you don't hit a cat or something like that.
These Baja Designs LP6s, dude, are horrifyingly bright. I love it.
I want to point out one thing that I thought of here. So kudos to AFN for getting the winch slightly tighter into the truck than we did. You can see, if I put my hand in there, you see that it's pretty tight into your grill.
Yeah.
If you go over to ours, you are going to see about a 2 to 3 inch gap instead. So I can almost twist my hand sideways instead of having to just cram it in like this. There is something that you had to do again to make that work that you don't have to on ours. So with that bumper, you have to relocate your cooler, whereas this is located in its factory position. And so some guys say, well, can you make it tighter, or can you change this angle some so these lights go a little bit more forward instead of sideways? If you want to get into more install work and labor time, then it is technically possible.
Yeah.
But by making just this little 2 inch difference we're able to fit the cooler exactly where it goes, and you'll actually see that we do have great breathability. We've got slots all the way through this panel going across the back of the winch, and then we also have quite a few slots up underneath, so you're getting great airflow into your intercooler.
Yeah.
Again, into its factory spot. And so with what Adam's going to do, he's going to put his LP6s, we'll mount those straight up here, and so they'll have that look like this. The reason these holes are here is we're actually going to go ahead and throw a bull bar on, kind of similar to what we've got on this new one. We'll talk about that more later.
More later. Stay tuned for that next
I like
video.
to hang the lights up a little higher, and it doesn't really make a difference in terms of the output. But what I like to do is I like to try to make the lights and the Mercedes logo get on the same plane as our our Baja lights or our pod lights in the front. So that's just one little touch. It's just a little detail thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go to the back.
Let's run to the back.
Sorry, I'm going now.
No,
One other thing we threw in is our skid plate. So it did take us a little bit longer to go ahead and get the skid plate developed. But we got that done, and it's nice and form fitting. And what you'll find is that we've got the line of the skid plate matching up with the JWO integrated bumper here. We also have another option for guys that have either our detachable winch bumper or factory bumpers, and all that's going to change is the alignment to the front, just so it's kind of a clean presentation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a side-by-side to the
show us,
AFN is here. You can see the difference there.
So again, great design. If we're getting nitpicky, the one thing I don't love is just kind of rounding down. In my eyes, I like to kind of either go flat or even roll up when you have the opportunity. We can't really do that there, but at least staying flat, it's going to prevent, for the hardcore guys like Adam over here, if you're going to hit it on rocks, you're avoiding a joint to get hung up on. Instead, you can slide over it instead of have something to fight like that. We don't love fighting rocks. We like to slide over them.
Yeah,
so.
That makes sense.
Tiny little detail.
Yeah, and without getting too deep, we got ORC sliders on mine, which are, what is that, 2-inch aluminum?
Yeah, I think they claim about 60 millimeters. That does come to a hair over 2 inches.
And I put the grip tape on so I could get in and out.
Love that.
And one thing I wish, which you can start to see all this, these are from pivoting it on rocks.
Sure.
There's a little chunk here. But one thing that I did, and I'm really curious to get your perspective on this, your sliders have more of a function from a step standpoint. So if I wanted to get into the vehicle, I've got something to step on. So
we just got it clean for the first time in a while.
Yeah, Jack's like, I got to wash the trucks. I'm like, who washes their trucks? Anyway, but these are beefy. This is steel.
And that's
those are aluminum.
Yeah.
The other thing that you've done, because we both have an MBRP exhaust, people don't realize that the factory mufflers hang really low.
That's correct.
So your protection here was designed that if you're running the factory muffler, everything's protected.
You're still protected.
If you run the ORCs, you have zero protection on your muffler.
And that's kind of, one of the big points
to
having that slider rail. So that was, the nice thing about us being kind of a one-stop shop is we get the opportunity to see a lot of different builds and, see the way other companies approach things. And we always respect that, and we admire, their thought process and engineering. But the one thing that hung out to me from experience, about $2,200 later, you bend up an exhaust, you say you're never going to do that again. So I ripped my passenger side exhaust off the hangers and drug it down a trail.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was really impressive for all the guys around, and my heart was, going down my toes. So it'll upset you a little bit when you do that.
Do you have your key on this one?
I do.
Do you want to start it up real quick? We both have the same exhaust. Jack has a great video he put on YouTube, which is, by the way, what made me want the MBRP. Exhaust is the sound. I mean, these V8s just go. They are beautiful. I love them. But I just did a 12-hour drive, and it wouldn't be for everybody. You do get a little bit of drone. They're super loud on when you really get after it. They got a lot of low-end grumble. I love tunnel pulls. I downshift and just wah. But I got it because your video on your YouTube channel was like before and after.
Yep.
Was it even this street? Looks familiar.
It was close by.
Yeah.
It was
so
close by.
Just start it up real quick because if you're not going to replace the exhaust, you definitely want these sliders. Otherwise, you're not going to have protection. But here we go. Oh, so good.
Let me give you a little note.
Yeah, hit it. So good. Dude, I didn't tell you. So when I was on TFL, someone, because I love this exhaust, so I was revving it. And this person goes, your exhaust sounds like a wet balloon. Next person, sounds like you have an exhaust leak. I was like, beauty is in the ear of the beholder. So there we go.
You do either love it or you hate it.
Yeah. Quick profile shot. I want to show you the offset. We're going to do wheels and then these rear bumpers.
Absolutely.
Just take a look at mine, and I want you to look, let's get right here, looking down the side of the vehicle. And you can see, there we go. Wheels, tires are hanging out. Now, given Jack has aftermarket fenders, or stock, what are they again?
The offset is a positive 63 millimeter, and we're using a 50 millimeter spacer, so we're at a positive 13 millimeter offset.
So 60 is going this
20.
way. And then I'm positive 20.
And you've got the standard non-AMG flares.
Yeah.
And we're selling our aftermarket AMG style fender flares. So they're going to give you about 2 inches more of poke. If I remember correctly, you're about 2 inches on the non-AMG, and then going over to the AMG model, you're going to be about 4 to 4.5 inches in width. Aesthetically, it can look nice, but one thing I'll kind of ring over and over is we don't care so much about the aesthetics as the performance.
Yeah.
For guys that want to keep their beautiful trucks that they've invested a lot of money in clean, having those fender flares come out a little wider to protect the side body is going to be beneficial. But I won't lie, that looks really awesome.
It looks so good. And I don't have a spacer, you have a spacer.
I'm using a 50 mil. Yep.
Single bead lock on the 463s. Again, 463 Industries, Henry's awesome over there. And I absolutely love these wheels. Yep. And then, but the inner bead is no bead lock. Yep. Meanwhile, the Hutchinsons, which are, by the way, just freaking beautiful.
Yep.
They're double bead lock.
That's
is that
correct.
the right phrase?
That's you would call them a double bead lock. And so what a typical bead lock is going to do, a standard bead lock, like the 463 Industries wheels. Shout out to Henry. We've been a longtime partner with those guys, and Henry, incredible customer service, makes great products, and we really love working with them.
And you can order, if you want either of these wheels, bumpers, sliders, there's a link in the description. Go to jackwagonoverlanding.com.
Absolutely.
Jack will take great care. If you have questions, can I say that if they have questions?
Please have them.
When I put my build together, I talked to Jack. He really helped me figure out. He helped me dial in the build on our 2015, or excuse me, our 2018, the first one we did. Yep. You talked to me and my wife. We were on speakerphone coming over from a road trip.
Y'all were on a road trip.
Yeah, we were coming back. So anyway, if you want either of these, do it.
We
get in touch with Jack.
We can definitely do it.
He'll help you out.
And so, real quick, on a single bead lock, what that's doing is it's pinching this outer piece of the tire. So this face, this sidewall is being pitched from the inside and outside between the barrel of this wheel and this bead lock. And that's great. And so it's going to allow you to air down a little bit more without the risk of popping a bead. However, your inner bead is still just like a standard tire, or excuse me, like a standard wheel, because it's not having that pinch from the inside over there. You're only getting the one side protected. With the Hutchinson bead lock, it's a double bead lock. And so with these wheels, what you can't see is inside of here, right in line with the tire shape, there's a rubber cylinder inside that goes the width of the wheel. And so when you mount these, you have the inner edge of the wheel, and then the tire, and then the pinch with the rubber bead lock. And the rubber bead lock goes all the way to pinch the outside of the tire, and then the wheel is pinching the outside of the outside tire. So you're getting a pinch on the inside and outside. We need to ask Henry and some of the other companies that are making some bead locks what they rate them to. Hutchinson in the sand claims 0 PSI with no risk of debeating, and on rocks 5 PSI with no risk of debeating. And another thing that's nice for guys that maybe aren't going to do a lot of rock climbing per se, they can still be beneficial with light use off-road. You might do this too. People air down.
Yeah, I run these down to 8.
Yeah, and so whenever you're trail riding and things like that, we had the opportunity to go to the G-Wagon rally, and shout out to those guys. You might check out some of their social media platforms too. We got to go out with about 50 G-Wagons last year, and people were amazed even amongst the G-Wagon crowd, the difference in this ride versus all the other G-Wagons. And so it's one thing to say, oh, this drives better than a Land Cruiser, but you say it drives better than another G-Wagon, that really makes you feel good. And that has to do with suspension, but also when you air down so low, that's going to absorb so much of the impact. And I do tell people this a lot. This is another ramble thing, but people often forget that the first dampener in your suspension setup is your tire.
Yeah.
And so guys that are running 24-inch rims and have a rubber band tire, they've
really?
got absolutely no dampening because you're essentially running on all metal and you're making the suspension do all the work.
It's so uncomfortable.
A big beefy tire is going to absorb a lot of the impact and take some of that work off of your suspension to get even a more plush and better performing off-road ride.
I couldn't believe it when I ran our 2018 factory, totally stock. We did Imogene Pass.
Yeah.
And then I lifted it, 2-inch lift, your springs, freaking love. By the way, if you're gonna lift your truck, don't look at any other spring. Just get Jackwagon overlanding springs. They're on both my rigs. The ride quality is phenomenal. They should have come stock like that. But between that and 33s, just immediately getting off road, way more comfortable, air down. It's like, I had a friend of mine in his Jeep, broke down. They had to jump in mine. We were out wheeling, and they were both like, I cannot believe how soft and comfortable this thing is. But anyway, before we get lost in that, let's take a look. AFN rear bumper on mine.
Yes, sir.
Jackwagon bumper on, obviously, the Jackwagon.
Yeah.
So we've got on this an integrated spare tire carrier.
Love
I think
that.
my door's unlocked. Do you want to open that up?
Yeah.
My truck's filthy, by the way. I pulled the rear seats out, and there's dog hair galore. But you can see that the spare tire carrier, all the weight of this goes on the this arm, and then the nice thing is it actually closes pretty easy.
No big deal.
This closes easier than my wife's with 33-inch tire. But this bumper had required a custom extra fab because this had been hit, as evidenced by, well, everything. But anyway, this thing, I think Joe had to realign this 3 times. Look at, I don't know if you saw that, on both sides, there was so much flex that it actually bent into the body.
Sure
and
enough.
I have this on both corners, and he had to touch it up with paint. Both corners ended up getting damaged because this entire bumper flexed into it.
How about that?
So they, Joe had to weld in, I don't know if we're gonna be able to see this.
Did a great job with that.
Yeah, they did a phenomenal job. But this mount here, I think, yeah, there we go, is actually the factory tow hitch, trailer hitch. And there's a plate that's welded into here and then bolted into there. And that's what we needed to stiffen this thing up. So anyway, now I really like it, but it took a lot of work. And I don't have blind spot monitoring. So now we're gonna, remember when I started that like 20 minutes ago? Blind spot monitoring. Do you want to talk through, well, let's actually just do a tour of yours, and then we'll talk about what everyone's like, well, what is that thing?
Yep.
By the way, teaser, what is in here?
Huh.
You'll find out soon.
A hidden pocket.
A hidden pocket.
It's not a step.
All right.
Okay, well, we do not have the beautiful swing out spare design that AFN does, and we got to give them a huge shout out on that. That's great ingenuity and the way they made that work. It's not as straightforward as you might think. Have you ever peeked behind to kind of show people what that looks?
And it
all the
lines
hinge
up.
work.
Couple of
that
hind
took
joints.
a lot. That took a lot of effort to make all those things line up so seamlessly.
Yeah.
And we do really enjoy that part of the AFN bumper. And as you mentioned, that is going to relieve a lot of the stress on the trunk door with these heavier tires. And of course, we don't have that. So we do have a couple things to accommodate for it, with the Jackwagon being the guinea pig. We kind of like to see how far we can go, before we mess something up. We haven't put any additional beef to holding that spare. Besides, we're using the 911 reverse spare tire mount, which we also sell. 911 was a great partner to us from the beginning, and we really appreciate them. Eurowise also makes one. What's great about what Eurowise has done is they've actually made a reinforcement bracket to go with their reverse spare tire mount. That reinforcement bracket will work with either the 911 or the Eurowise reverse mounts.
Sure.
And that will do similar to what that's doing in terms of taking the weight off the trunk door. It's actually going to put the weight onto these hinges instead. And so by putting the weight here, you're eliminating this lever arm. So right now when we open this, all the weight is hanging like 2 to 3 foot. I guess we'll call that about 2 foot over. So it's really putting a lot of weight on those, a lot of force on those hinges. If you put it right at the hinge, all of a sudden it makes it a little bit more sturdy. So if you don't want to go through that process and you'd rather just focus on your spare tire configuration, 33, 35, you're going to go crazy with the 37. There is an alternative to just using that.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Yeah, right, come on. So I will say, we'll go ahead and open mine up because you did it. I guess I got to do it too. Trying to pick up golf, so I don't have much sitting in there right now.
Oh, look at that.
But we're actually pretty eye to eye, which is fun. But
yeah,
as you can see, you know, this is at the bottom of my rib cage essentially.
Jack and I are both really tall.
You know, putting a whole bunch of drawers and things going up tall, I would need a step stool to get to the top.
Yeah.
So, you know, multi-purpose truck. I don't have anything in there, but we do have plans for a drawer system. But now the fun, we'll shut it, and then I do guide it in. It really shuts pretty good, but it is a lot more work on the arm, admittedly. Is this a concern? For us, it's not really. We do like the idea of reinforcing it or putting it onto the onto the bumper. But if you're going to keep the trunk door closed frequently and not leave it open, there's really not as much risk of messing up the hinges. The concern is when you leave this trunk door open for a couple hours, you're camping out, you're doing a tailgate, you're doing something where people are going in and out of your trunk door, this position is going to wear out those hinges. So that's when you're going to see the biggest shift.
For most people, it probably won't be an issue. I love the brown interior, by the way. Freaking love it. When you're climbing really steep stuff, this can get buried in the sand.
Sure.
This is tucked nice and tight. This is not. However, all the load is on the bumper. And I buried this in the sand. I had to bail because I was starting to, my front end was jockeying over and I didn't want to roll. So I quick threw it in reverse, came down on this bumper, on this tire. I would have torched my door. However, pulled the entire bumper out. My back door was inoperable till I got back, and Joe had to get it going again. But anyway, so we have backup. Do you have 2 backup lights?
Yes. So
by the way, G-Wagons only come with 1. That's why I asked if there was 2. Everyone's like, you have a light that's out.
I've got to say, to the purists out there, it might bug them a little bit, but I can't tell you how many times I was pulling out of a parking lot. You know, we just got done with a nice dinner, me and the wife, and someone was like, hey, roll down the window. I was like, what's up, man? He goes, hey, you got a tail light out. Reverse light. I'm like, no, I don't. That's a fog light. So what we did is we're actually using a Diode Dynamics SS2 light here. And what that has is both a clear operable light, and then it's got a red secondary light. And so we've got it wired up so you do get the clear reverse light out the back, and then when you turn on your fog light, you will get a fog light out of both of those lights as well. And so just for the symmetry, you know, making things look a little cleaner, we went ahead and did that. Another thing that our bumper comes factory with, if you have them, we cut out the holes for your Parktronic. Those, I believe, you had to cut holes and make them fit.
And I think we've been having some issues getting it going.
Varying results. And so ours function, you know, out the door, plug and play. And then, of course, we've got this nice little pocket. So
what is this?
So the 30-second countdown, what is it? So get your guesses in. This is for your blind spot assist sensor. So on slightly newer models, somewhere around the 2008 to 2012 range, they started using them in all 13 and newer models, 13 to 18 models, actually on the new S models as well. They're going to have that blind spot monitor. It's a big, hefty sensor. It's probably about a 5 by 5 inch plastic sensor inside of there. And what's the issue? With every other bumper, rear bumper we ever saw, it did not accommodate for this. So that sensor, it's trying to pick up other cars on the road, which are made of metal. So if you have a metal bumper covering it, it doesn't just think there's one there, it thinks it's right up against you. So it will make that inoperable. This 3D plastic piece allows that sensor to read through, and you get full functionality of your blind spot monitoring. If you don't have it, of course, we're going to just cover that in. There won't be these holes. There's not going to be the big hole. We just fill it in. Or if you want us to leave it and you want to make it a step, or you want to do something crazy with it, we can do that too. But we don't keep that if you don't have the blind spot assist.
And mine's inoperable.
So we can fix that. In theory.
In theory.
Maybe on the next trip.
Well, Jack, thank you. So there's everything you need to know about armoring your G-Wagon. Front bumper, rear bumper, AFN, jackwagon. Drop a comment below. Let me know. Jackwagon, AFN. Either one you can get from Jackwagon Overlanding. Jack, thanks a bunch. Jack's contact info is in the description below. Supports people that support us.
Absolutely.
Small operation, totally all in on the G-Wagon. I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, y'all.